Imagine, if you will, that you have a taste so bad in your mouth that you have to use an entire bottle of mouthwash to try and get it out. And I mean like one of the big Costco-sized bottles of mouthwash. It's even getting to the point where you're starting to seriously consider just drinking bleach to get rid of it. But a little over 2/3 of the way through the bottle, it starts to seem like it's working. Right up until you accidentally swallow a big chunk of what was in your mouth. And what did you have in your mouth in the first place that was so bad you considered drinking bleach? Well, that would be moldy dog poop, and a lot of it. Of course, it probably also didn't help that most of the way through the bottle you took another handful of that dog poop and put it in your mouth on top of what was already in there, but still. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome to Kraken R&R, where, well, there's no other way to put it than today, for Seattle sports fans, was the worst day we've had since probably the summer of 2008 when the Sonics left town. To be fair, the Kraken really didn't play that big of a role in that. They just kind of failed to wash the bad taste of the rest of the day out of our mouths. I mean, sure, it started off just great with Jared McCann signing a 5-year extension with the Kraken worth about $5 million per year. It averages out to $5 million per year. There's a little other nuances, if you will, year to year with how much he's actually getting paid, but anyway, it's $25 million over 5 years. Most importantly, though, it means McCann is staying with the Kraken for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, that whole committing to your best player for an extended period of time thing did not turn out to be the theme of the day, where, again, outside of the world of the Kraken, but still very much the world of Seattle sports, in fact, the heartbeat of Seattle sports over the last 20 years, the Seahawks decided to just burn everything to the ground, trading Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos, and then during the Kraken game, releasing Bobby Wagner. So, in one day, they managed to get rid of 2 future Hall of Famers. Yeah, so pretty bad day. Now, these R&R videos are meant to be about the Kraken and breaking down each one of their games, so I'll leave it there as far as the Seahawks are concerned, but yeah, let's just say the theme of the day has been a lot of expletives and wondering how much longer it takes before the Seahawks can get rid of John Schneider for betraying the city. I don't think that gross incompetence leading to the destruction of a team that has been the lifeblood of sports in Seattle is a crime that you can get sent to jail for, but it kind of feels like it should be. Regardless, at least as far as just the Kraken are concerned, all in all, I guess it really wasn't all that bad of a day. Again, they signed their best player, signaling that there's no way he's on the trading block during this trade deadline, which could claim a couple of Kraken players. Plus, although the Kraken do end up losing 6-4 to the Leafs, the silver lining is that even though I would say most of us are still hoping that the Kraken do win every game individually, with the season going the way that it has, at this point, the bigger picture is that every loss for the Kraken is one step closer to potentially getting that first overall pick and the superstar of the future that could be Shane Wright, who, along with last year's second overall pick in Matty Beniers, could very well make next year look a lot different for the Kraken than this year has gone. Of course, on the other hand, this whole perpetual maybe next year attitude around Seattle sports definitely gets pretty old. I mean, it's not been fun over the last 20 years with the Mariners, and fortunately we've had the Seahawks to distract us from most of that. Of course, now the Mariners are finally about to be good, and the MLB is deciding to try and ruin that themselves, just taking all the teams away from everybody. And then the Seahawks, well, their front office just decided to take them away from us as well. So now we're looking to the Kraken to hopefully get things figured out by next season so that we aren't just crossing our fingers that the NBA can get out of their own way and give us a team back. Anyway, getting distracted again. Back to the Kraken. As far as this game is concerned, lineup-wise, it was pretty much the same thing that we saw in Carolina. And aside from goaltender being Drieger in that first game, the same thing that we saw in DC as well. Which, I mean, the consistency is nice, except for the fact that that means that once again for a third game in a row, Ryan Donato was not in the lineup, still for no apparent reason whatsoever, outside of maybe Hackstall being incompetent, or maybe Donato's dealing with something, either a potential injury or an illness of some kind that they haven't disclosed. I don't really think that's it. I think it's probably down to either Hackstall not understanding that he's supposed to be putting winning teams out there, or maybe he's actually been instructed to try to tank at this point, just not make it that obvious. Because I mean, at this point, it's honestly starting to look like Donato is getting benched because he was the one Kraken player, maybe aside from McCann, who signed a contract, that was actually willing to shoot the puck when he had it on his stick. So I guess the Kraken looked at it and thought, okay, if he starts shooting the puck too much, then we might actually start scoring goals, which then could lead to wins. And if that happens, we might not get Shane Wright. So yeah, let's go ahead and bench Donato because he's going to make the team better. And yes, if you told me at the start of the season that I would be this upset over Donato getting benched for a few games in a row, I would probably be pretty confused and think you were on something, considering at the time I thought the Donato signing in the offseason was kind of a nothing depth signing that probably wasn't going to lead to much of anything. Instead, he's actually been one of the Kraken's best goal scorers, and we're at a point in the season where, yeah, him being benched is worth being upset over. At least if you actually like watching the Kraken win games. Oh, and Hayden Fleury was also benched for these last 3 games, but that one I think is a little more explainable. He didn't necessarily earn a full-time starting spot in the lineup. That having been said, with Lauzon now having a couple of tougher games in a row, I think there's a little bit more of an argument that Fleury should be getting some playing time, unless, of course, the Kraken are trying to get guys like Lauzon and Soucy a little bit more ice time in the effort of trading them before the deadline. But yeah, when it comes to Lauzon, I don't think he necessarily increased his tradability in this game in particular. Although he did at least have an assist in this game. It would also turn out that, as we would find out over the course of the game, the lineup would not be the only thing consistent in this game against Toronto with the other 2 games of this road trip so far, where once again, for the 3rd time in 3 games, the Kraken end up losing this one thanks to special teams. Unlike the previous 2 games, though, where the Kraken tied the Capitals 2-2 5-on-5 and then tied the Canes 1-1 5-on-5, the Kraken actually end up beating the Leafs 3-2 5-on-5 in this one. However, once again, special teams make the difference, where the Kraken end up getting outscored 3-1. All of those goals coming on the Kraken penalty kill. And we get to start that adventure right away to start the game, or at least within the first couple of minutes of the game. Now, coming into this game, we knew if the Kraken wanted to win, one of the keys to doing that was going to be to keep Toronto off the power play as much as possible. Not only had Seattle been struggling on this road trip so far at killing off penalties, just a 1 for 5 on the kill so far, but the Leafs coming into this game, and it stays that way afterwards, are the best power play team in the NHL with just about a 30% success rate. And sure enough, just about 3 minutes into the game, Donskoy heads to the box on a tripping call against Kerfoot, and the Leafs get the early power play. And it doesn't take them very long to display why it was going to be a key to prevent them from getting that man advantage. As Matthews, along the boards, drops it back to Riley at the blue line, who goes across to Nylander, back across to Matthews, who takes a second, takes his shot right through the 5-hole of Grubauer and into the back of the net, to give the Leafs the early 1-0 lead and their first power play goal of the night. And for Grubauer, although this shot does come off of a crossing pass, it's not a one-timer from Matthews, and Grubauer had time to get across the net and see the shot coming from Matthews, so I think it's safe to say this is one he probably should have had. The good news is that just about a minute later, the Kraken are finally getting some extended time in the Leafs end of the ice, and I don't think I need to tell you which line is making that happen for the Kraken. But since they all end up getting involved in this play anyway, we'll go ahead and name them. Appleton ends up winning a puck battle along the boards, which he's been one of the better Kraken players at doing that. He hasn't had a lot of other noticeable contributions, but winning puck battles has been one of his best. Anyway, he gets it to Gord. Gord carries it up along the boards for a second, goes back down to Appleton. Appleton then finds Blackwell in the slot, who takes a second to think about it, but ends up passing it instead of shooting it. It's over to Soucy, who takes a shot off at the net. Appleton, who's found his way to the net, ends up getting in front of it, and instead of deflecting it, it rebounds off of his skate, but right back to Soucy, who shoots it again, and he puts the second shot top shelf into the back of the net to give the Kraken their first goal of the game and give them the 1-0 lead at 5-on-5. Unfortunately, power play goals still do count, so after that Leafs power play goal about 2 minutes ago, the Kraken now even things at 1, just over 5 minutes into the game. Unfortunately, the game doesn't end up staying tied all that long. I mean, in the grand scheme of things with how the Kraken season has gone and how many quick response goals they've given up, I guess the 4 minutes in between goals, or actually 4.5 minutes, is a fairly long time for the Kraken to keep the puck out of the net. Either way, the Leafs win a faceoff at their end of the ice, which somehow leads to a goal quickly. And that somehow is, surprise, surprise, a Kraken defensive miscue. Brody gets it from the Leafs goal line all the way up to Engvall near the Kraken blue line, and let me see if you can figure out where the defensive problem is here for the Kraken. Now, you see Engvall's got the puck here, and Mark Giordano is guarding him by the blue line, making it hard for him to cleanly enter the Kraken defensive zone. However, you might notice that there's another Leaf player up towards the top of the ice that looks to be completely alone, and that's because he is completely alone. Meanwhile, Susie is, for some reason that I just can't quite explain, up with the forwards, kind of watching this play happen instead of over where he should be, guarding the other Leaf entering the zone. And who is that other Leaf? Oh, nobody important. It's just John Tavares, the Leafs captain. And of course, Engvall finds Tavares, who gets a free breakaway chance one-on-one against Grubauer, and he makes it count, getting it past Grubauer to give the Leafs the 2-1 lead and equal things up 1-1, 5-on-5. You know, for whatever that's worth. Weirdly though, even though there have been now 3 goals already in this game, neither team has really been able to build any noticeable momentum to this point. However, right here about at the halfway point of the period is where the Leafs pretty clearly take over the momentum of the game for the remainder of the first, getting a couple of pretty big pushes off at the Kraken end of the ice. Fortunately, none of those lead to goals, so really the only goals that end up happening is the Kraken grinding one out in the Leafs zone, the Leafs of course getting a power play goal, and one on a complete brain fart on Susie's part defensively. But when the Leafs actually get things rolling and get set up in the offensive zone a few times over, they don't actually end up making anything of it, and the Kraken survive all of that to get to the end of the first period, with the score still just 2-1 Leafs. For the second period in a row, the Leafs find themselves quickly onto the power play to start the second. Just a couple minutes in, this time it's Lauzon to the box on a tripping call, and the Kraken penalty kill actually does a pretty good job this time killing off the Leafs power play. Right up until the very end when Gio tries to clear a puck out of the Kraken end of the ice, which, I guess to be fair, he does successfully get it out of the Kraken end. Unfortunately, he gets it out of the Kraken end clean over the boards into the stands for a delay of game call, which gives the Leafs 2 more minutes of power play, and actually 3 seconds of 5-on-3, though that doesn't make a huge difference. And on that second Leafs power play, or I guess third one of the game, but second one of this period and second consecutive one, well, if you give the best power play unit in the entire NHL 4 straight minutes of odd man advantage, especially against a struggling penalty kill unit, they're probably going to make you pay sooner rather than later, and eventually they do make that happen here. It's Brody down to Nylander, who takes the shot off, and it looks like Tavares, who was screening on the play, tipped it through the 5-hole of Grubauer, but as far as official scoring is concerned, they have just decided to give it straight on to Nylander. Either way, it's through the 5-hole once again of Grubauer and into the back of the net to give the Leafs now the 3-1 lead and their second goal on the power play of the game. Huh. A 3-1 lead for the Leafs, you say? Well, they did have a 3-1 lead the last time they faced the Kraken, and that turned into a 4-1 lead and then a 5-1 lead, so the Kraken didn't really make that comeback happen. But if you tempt the Kraken twice with a 3-1 lead when you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, they might just make you pay for it. And sure enough, just a few minutes later, after the Kraken do come up empty on an extended push they have at the Leafs end, they get another rush chance through the neutral zone and down the middle of the ice at the Leafs end. It's Eberle to Wennberg, across to Johansson, and back to Wennberg. No chance for Campbell. Wennberg's at the side of the net with plenty of net to shoot at, and he puts it in to give the Kraken their second goal of the game. It's now 3-2. The Kraken still down by 1, but they've cut that lead in half. And for Wennberg, just like Susie before him in this game, it's his 7th goal of the season for the Kraken. And after having been largely a non-factor, and even in a lot of ways I would say more often a negative than a positive for the Kraken, up until about midway through February, he has come on with force here in the last couple of weeks. Absolutely on fire for Seattle right now. That Wennberg's so hot right now. Shortly thereafter though, although the Kraken do press for more, they end up drawing another penalty. It's a bit of a soft cross-checking call against Giordano that sends him to the box for his second stint there. I mean, you could make the argument that they did say at the beginning of the season that they were going to try to call cross-checking more this year, but that seems to have kind of died off about halfway through the season. Either way, soft call or not, Gio's in the box, and the Leafs are now getting their 4th power play of the game, where so far they've been 2 for 3 in scoring goals. And while a 3-1 lead or even a 4-1 lead is something that makes Leaf fans cringe, A 4-2 lead is not necessarily one that they're known for blowing, so this is not really a goal the Kraken want to be giving up. Sorry, did I say goal? I meant power play, but the way the Kraken penalty kill has been going and the way the Leafs power play has been going, might as well be a goal at this point. And sure enough, just about halfway through this Leafs power play, there is another goal. However, this time it's not for the Leafs. Nylander turns it over to Gord in the Kraken end, and Gord on a breakaway gets down the ice and eventually finds Blackwell on the other side of Riley, and Blackwell buries it into the back of the net for another shorthanded goal. And this Kraken penalty kill, well, they have started giving up goals, showing that they can still score them as well. And of course, once again, it's that combo of Gord and Blackwell making it happen on the penalty kill for the Kraken, which, although I was thinking that Blackwell was a prime trade candidate, being that he's a UFA at the end of the season, I'm starting to really think the Kraken are going to want to hang on to him, at least for the penalty kill, if not to keep that Gord-Blackwell-Appleton line together going into next season, where even though it's just been 1 week, this has been the most consistently producing line that the Kraken have really seen all season. And it's probably also worth mentioning that on that successful penalty kill that the Kraken had earlier, just before Gio threw it over the boards and gave the Leafs that second power play, Gord did have a couple of near-miss breakaway chances on that penalty kill as well, which I guess just turned out to be foreshadowing for what happens here. And fun fact of the game, for Colin Blackwell, who didn't have a shorthanded goal in the first 111 games of his NHL career, he now has 2 in the last 4 games he's played for the Kraken, with that first one coming against the Predators. And to put the cherry on top of all of it, the Kraken are able to kill off the rest of this Leafs power play, so at the very least, they're now a .500 on the kill against Toronto, which is better than they've done in the previous 2 games so far on this road trip. Not only that, but the Kraken actually end up getting a power play of their own shortly after this kill ends. And while the Kraken power play has been, well, almost worse than the Kraken penalty kill at scoring goals over the last few weeks, or honestly even 2 months now, this Kraken power play actually looks very good and almost scores on a couple of occasions with a couple of good chances and shots off on net, but they just can't quite get one to go. But while this power play does end up having a all too familiar result of not coming up with a point for the Kraken, it is fair to say that if more power plays look like this one does for Seattle, they will score much more frequently than they have been doing. Still though, we head to the third with the game still tied at 3, which is a whole lot of the number 3. And now I'm sad again. The third period starts out somewhat back and forth. It's a rather uneventful start to the third, all things considered, right up until the Kraken get the puck into Toronto's end of the ice and in behind the net, where they're able to somewhat sloppily but successfully work it around the boards. Alexiak behind the Toronto net gets it to Schwartz, who hacks and whacks at it until he can get it a little bit up the boards to Wennberg, who does the same until he can get it a little farther up the boards to Järnkrok, who takes a little less time to get it up the boards again to Lauzon, who skates it along the blue line towards the middle of the ice and then fires off a shot at the net, and it's in the back of the net! The Kraken have done it! They complete the comeback and take the lead 4-3 against the Leafs. It ends up being deflected off of Schwartz in front of the net and into the back of the goal past Campbell. It ends up being Schwartz's 7th goal on the season, joining Wennberg and Susie in that category in this game. And not only that, but they're able to continue that momentum right off the faceoff, almost getting another chance to make it 5-3, but instead they end up getting a power play out of it just after that goal to take the lead. However, all that power play for the Kraken ends up doing is not building off what they did in the previous power play. Instead, it's much more the nothing power play that we've seen out of the Kraken all too often, that pretty much only serves to kill the Kraken momentum that they built right after that goal. And of course, right after that nothing power play from the Kraken, the Leafs push right into Seattle's end of the ice, and all sorts of defensive issues leads to a 2-on-0 chance for Marner and Bunting in front of Grubauer, and somehow Grubauer comes up with the save, denying Bunting on the Marner pass in front of the net, and the Kraken survive that, getting it out of the zone. However, they turn it right back over to the Leafs and right back into the Kraken end. Another defensive miscue leads to a one-on-one chance for Matthews against Grubauer, and Matthews makes this one count, getting it around Grubauer, dangling him to one side of the net and putting it in the other to tie the game at 4. And I mean, sure, Matthews does make Grubauer look silly with this goal, But Matthews is one of the best goal scorers in the league and currently leading the NHL in scoring goals. Plus, Grubauer just bailed out the defense with a 2-on-0 chance, so to give Matthews just seconds later a free breakaway against Grubauer, yeah, I think it's safe to say that this one isn't on Grubauer whatsoever. And just like the Kraken did after their last goal, the Leafs try to build on that momentum right off the faceoff. And while just like the Kraken, they aren't able to make it happen, they do pretty quickly get another power play. 5 seconds into the Leafs power play, they score on it. Tavares wins the faceoff clean in the Kraken end, right out to Marner, who just kind of skates with it around the high slot, looking for a screen in front of Grubauer, and as soon as he sees that Grubauer doesn't know where the puck is anymore, he takes a shot off on net. Grubauer can't pick up that the shot's coming because of the screen, and it's into the back of the net past Grubauer, once again through the 5-hole, and the Leafs have the 5-4 lead. Yeah, I guess you could say that this is one that Grubauer should have. Again, it goes through his 5-hole, which is the third time this game, and that's certainly not a good look. But when you give a team like the Leafs 5 power plays, technically 6, but really it's effectively 5 at this point, they're gonna make you pay on a number of those chances. And especially when you give a player as skilled as Marner is that much time and space in the middle of the offensive zone to pick his spot, take his shot, and again, just kind of skate around until he sees that Grubauer can't see him taking the shot. Plus, as we've talked about, it would be nice to win a faceoff or two in your defensive zone. With still about half of the third period left, the Kraken do get a few more chances to try to even things up at 5, including a late power play that, I guess, actually it wasn't even a Kraken power play, it was that 4-on-4 thing that happened late in the game between Bunting and Lauzon that eventually the Kraken end up pulling Grubauer during that to get effectively a power play but with an empty net. And while the 4-on-4 does end up finishing up without the empty net getting hit, after it finishes back to 6-on-5, Matthews, after having one shot saved by Giordano, does get the puck back on his stick and puts it into the back of the net to finish off the hat trick and finish off the Kraken effectively, as this game does end 6-4 with that empty net goal. And so for the Kraken, once again for the third time on this road trip, they play well and honestly hold their own against yet another very good team bound for the playoffs. But once again, special teams is their Achilles heel, while they play fantastic 5-on-5 and throughout a large portion of the game even outplay the Leafs. On special teams, they're no match for Toronto, where the Leafs outscore the Kraken 3-1. 3 goals on 5 power plays for the Leafs, or again, technically 6, but effectively 5 power plays. And for the Kraken, the 1 shorthanded goal, again, going 0 for 2 on the power play, or you could say 0 for 3 if you want to count that one late in the game. Plus, on top of all of that, the Kraken now get swept by the Leafs and also are still looking for their first ever win in the country of Canada north of the border, which they might actually have a chance to pull off in their next game coming up here on Thursday, where finally the murderer's row of good teams is over, and the Kraken will have their first ever meeting with the Ottawa Senators in Ottawa on Thursday. I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined for the live stream of this game, or the watch-along stream that we've been doing for these. I tried to give a little bit more of a notice announcing it in the last R&R, and while I could have done a better job of actually getting the YouTube announcement out earlier, again, it's a work in progress, and it was still one of the more successful streams that we've had in quite a while now, which probably had something to do with them playing the Leafs. That was kind of part of the plan, if we're being honest. And it may also had something to do with people just coming to watch a Seattle sports fan cry themselves into a coma with everything that went on with the Seahawks today. And again, probably the worst day in Seattle sports since the Sonics left in 2008. Which, that whole crying myself into a coma thing actually doesn't sound that bad. I might just go do that here in a little bit. But before then, feel free to let me know in the comments section what you guys thought of this game. Or, feel free to use it as a coping mechanism if you're just a general Seattle sports fan and watching the entire sports world in Seattle burn to the ground around the Kraken. Anyway, if you've made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that would help support the channel, and emotionally I could use that support at this point in time. Otherwise, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, go Kraken and screw John Schneider.